Ladies and gentlemen, we are here once again. This is the Tailgate Committee. We are to week 13 of the college football season, getting down to the nitty gritty, getting down to the end of the season. My name is Andy Hopper. I'm joined as always by Tom Scavetta and Noah Dibler. We are here to dive in to this week of college football. I guess we're going to start with last week in college football. We're going to do a week 12 recap to start the show. We are going to talk Lane Kiffin and him making the news this weekend. Some alleged reports we will talk about. We're going to talk about the new CFP rankings because there has been some hot debate since they have been released. And we have our six-pack, our lock of the week, of course. This is the Tailgate Committee. Like and subscribe if you haven't. We're on YouTube at the Tailgate Committee. We're on Facebook and Instagram at the Tailgate Committee as well. And follow us on Twitter at the Tailgate.com. So let's dive right in to our Week 12 recap. And we're going to start with probably the craziest game of last Saturday, and that would be Texas A&M and South Carolina. This game had everything, folks. 27-point comebacks, wild finishes, and police officers trying to fight South Carolina football players in the tunnel. Crazy one. We'll start with this. So South Carolina races out to a 30-3 lead at halftime. Everyone is clowning Texas A&M, saying, "Oh, as people do, they instantly have to get a reaction off." But Texas A&M's overrated. They're done. Well, in the second half, old Shane Beamer's ball club gets blanked. Texas A&M scores 31 points or 28 points, and they win the game 31-30. I believe SEC teams are now 1 in 286 when losing by 27 plus points. Marcel Reed, 439 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions. Not much to speak of in the run game for really either team. A lot of passing in this one. But Noah, we'll start with you. Texas A&M stays alive. They are still undefeated in SEC play, but boy, did they have to work for this one.
He did, and honestly, I was not expecting him to win that game when they were down 30-3 at halftime. That was something to see. But a couple of things. First of all, I'll give them credit for the comeback. I'm not going to say it was a great game by any means because it wasn't. They almost lost. They needed like quite literally the best comeback in their program's history to win by 1 point. Had to outscore them 28-0 in the second half to get that one done. But I will say this. We had that talk about the Heisman race last week, right? And it was kind of, I think the two we were mainly discussing was Sayin and Simpson. I think he's right back in the race after a game like this, guys. Now, I know he had 2 interceptions, but I mean, 452 yards of offense, 3 touchdowns, and a comeback like win. That's a textbook Heisman moment for him. And, basically saved their chances to make the SEC championship game pretty much, I think, because they lost that. It would have been in dire straits. But I will say this as well. South Carolina, I mean, it's just been a disaster season. They're 1-7 in the SEC, guys. They won their 2 out of conference games, but just a horrible season for them. And I'm a little surprised at you because I think Beamer's done mostly a pretty good job there the few years he's been there. But for whatever reason, this year it's just completely fallen apart. Remember there was Heisman talk about Sellers in the preseason. Boy, did that disappear almost immediately. But, in this game, he's 50-30, 246, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Like you said, Andy, A&M couldn't really run the ball, so that's why I think this was even more of an impressive comeback here by Marcel Reed. Also got to give credit, right, to Concepcion and Bethel Roman. These two combined for almost 300 yards receiving between them. 1 touchdown for Bethel Roman as well. And it's kind of funny to say this, considering that they went down 33, but I also have to give a lot of credit to the A&M defense guys in this game. 4 sacks and 10 tackles for loss for the unit as a whole. So that was very good for them. But yeah, wild game for sure, man. Like I said, biggest comeback in A&M program history. They have a cupcake this week in Sanford, and then they end the season at Texas. I think that'll be a very interesting game. They cannot look past Texas just because they have 3 losses now, right? That's a big rivalry game on the road as well. But just for right now, 7-0, still leading the SEC. They're sitting pretty, man, and they needed that comeback big time.
Yeah, a big win for them to keep position. They stay at number 3 in the rankings, which we kind of figured would happen as long as they won. Tom, we were talking about Indiana last week and that comeback they needed. Would you say that this Texas A&M comeback rivals the Indiana from last week? Would you say this is more impressive? Would you say this is less impressive, or say it doesn't really matter because they needed they ended up winning the game?
Similar in ways, different in others. A win is a win, right? But I think what really separates a good team from a great team is when adversity strikes and how you react to it. And this is exactly what that team did. Shane Beamer in South Carolina punched them in the mouth in that first half. And they were on their backs and their butts. There was no sign of life. And they were able to come back and beat a good football team. South Carolina's record is not good this year, but they are not this terrible, awful football team like their record says they are. South Carolina, I know this game was at home for A&M, so, not the best look. But when you're down 30-3 or whatever it was, right, in that range at halftime and then come back and win, you really, in my opinion, you need to credit both sides of the ball. This was the best complimentary football half they played all season long, in my opinion. Marcel Reed was shaky throughout the game, right? 2 picks and a lost fumble. Not good for a guy we view as a Heisman hopeful with 3 turnovers in one game. That's not something you want to see. But all in all, the reason why they struggled as much as they did, they only ran for 64 yards against a South Carolina team that is surrendering more than that. Shane Beamer had a good game plan in the first half, their ability to stuff the run. But unfortunately for him, he collapsed in the second half. Mike Elko made adjustments. Shane Beamer did not. I feel like you have to be creative and do things outside the box when you're going to be a top 5 team, and Shane Beamer didn't do it. If his seat wasn't hot before, it definitely is now, because in the fashion that they lost, this loss is inexcusable. You cannot lose that way. It'd be one thing if you lost 31-0, but being up 30-3 and then losing 31-30, that is almost even worse. So all in all, Andy, to answer the question for Texas A&M, it's tough because I think Indiana's had a couple of close calls this year outside of Notre Dame. This is really the toughest that they've had so far. So I'm not going to hit the panic button on them just yet, similar to what I did with Indiana last week, based off the nature of the game and the fact that it's only happened once.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Great teams find ways to win when they absolutely have their backs against the wall. I saw a quote. I think Shane Beamer said, we're down this year, but next time at this time next year, we'll be waiting to see where we're ranked in the CFP top 25. Okay, buddy, you got a lot of stuff to fix before we go that far. But yeah, rough season for the Cox this year. Let's stay in the SEC. Another game that was probably surprised some people. For the second year in a row, the Oklahoma Sooners have taken down the Alabama Crimson Tide, 23-21, a victory this time for Oklahoma. They had that big interception return. John Mateer had used his legs for a touchdown. Ty Simpson had a couple passing touchdowns. Daniel Hill got in for the Crimson Tide, but it's not enough. The Tide pick up their second loss. That is their first loss in SEC play. Oklahoma is now 4-2 in the SEC, 8-2 overall, but in a really, really good spot for the playoff. Tom, I want to start with you on this one. Give me your instant reaction from this game, the takeaway, and what this might mean for Alabama and Oklahoma going forward.
I was very close to picking Oklahoma this week, last week, and I regret not doing so. It was a game where I should have won against the grain, but I didn't because of the body of work that Alabama has put out this season. I sort of ignored the Florida State loss and was sort of ignorant to the way that Oklahoma was playing as of late, and that definitely cost me one of my picks last week. Alabama still has never beaten Oklahoma in the state of Alabama. The reason why the Tide lost this game was the turnovers. They had 3 of them. If you look at the numbers, it is very lopsided. Alabama outgained Oklahoma 406 to 212. The difference was the 3 turnovers. Ty Simpson threw a costly pick 6. He lost 1 bad fumble. Not everything was his fault. You guys got to remember too, and you guys know this, but some people might not. Great quarterbacks they have bad games, right? And this was just a bad game for Alabama. Every team has that game every year. Sometimes you win those bad games. Other times you lose them. In this case, Alabama lost them. Neither team ran the ball very, very well. I was impressed with Oklahoma, right? Mateer, as good as he is, he's not going to put up these superstar numbers through the air. Oklahoma is going to find ways to win, and it's because they stop the run and they get pressure up front, with whether it's R. Mason Thomas or Taylor. R. Mason Thomas is very difficult to block. I don't think people realize that. Caden Proctor got absolutely mauled in this game. He did not stand a chance, and it was through all 4 quarters. There was no way Ty Simpson had a chance. As much as we want to, blame him, you got to look at the offensive line up front. When Alabama had the football, the Sooners dominated the line of scrimmage, which led to 3 turnovers. That's why they won this football game. Both teams, as of right now, definitely deserve to be seated in the CFP, but not comfortably.
Noah, let's throw it down to you. We'll put a pin in the CFP conversations. We're going to talk about that in just a minute because I love what you just said, Tom, and I want to dissect it a little bit more. But give me your thoughts on this game. Obviously, I know you love to see Bama lose, and that is what they did on Saturday. What was your analysis of the win for the Sooners?
2 main things. Number one, and Tom already kind of delved into this, was the mistakes for Alabama were critical. He mentioned the 3 turnovers. Not just 3 turnovers as well, by the way. One of those was a pick 6. They had a fumble by Ryan Williams on a punt return after the defense had got a 3 and out. That was a massive momentum shifter as well. But you know what? While I do agree that Alabama had a off game for their standards, I think the second thing I would say, guys, you also have to give a ton of credit to this Oklahoma team, especially the defense. The defense had some big plays in this one. I already mentioned the pick 6. They had, big 4th down stop in the 4th quarter to win the game, or they had a massive sack as well. It was like an 11-yard sack. That put Alabama behind the chains, and then they got the stop to win the game. Like Tom said, they dominated the line of scrimmage. They dominated Alabama's best offensive lineman the entire game. They shut down the running game. Ty Simpson, I wouldn't say had a bad game, but considering, we were talking about him being Heisman favorite, the fact they were able to get a pick 6 off him, force pressure on him, I think they did a good job there as well. They had, I believe it was late in the second half, they had a drive where they were able to stop Alabama again, and then Alabama missed the field goal. So all these little momentum shifters, and, they only won this game by 2, so all those things added up in the end. I was wrong. I did pick Alabama to win this game at home. I'm glad to be wrong, of course. But, man, I got to say this as well. I'm really impressed with what Brent Venables is doing, bringing the Sooners to the SEC and everything. The fact that, they've been this solid the past 2 years, beat Alabama back-to-back seasons as well. That is, trust me, I know that's not easy to do. Some teams can't even do it once. But credit to them, man. They went out, they fought for this one. You look at the stat sheet, and you might think, oh, Alabama had 4 and 6 to 211 yards, I think, in their favor. You think they would win. You watch the game though. There was a lot of bend but don't break from this Oklahoma defense. Mistakes by Alabama, and Oklahoma. Did they do anything amazing offensively? No, they didn't really run the ball either. Mateer only had 138 yards passing. But you know what they didn't do, guys? They didn't make those major mistakes that Alabama did. And that ended up being the difference at the end, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It kind of, you go back and think, was Alabama overlooking Oklahoma? Was this, a look ahead game? And then you look at the schedule and it's like, well, certainly couldn't be looking ahead to this week. They're playing Eastern Illinois in Tuscaloosa. So yeah, big one. Anytime the Panthers come to town, you throw out the records. But yeah, credit to Oklahoma, and they're in a good spot as of right now. Bama still in as of right now, but clinging to that spot. So let's stay in the SEC, a game personally requested by the old boy that we recap on this one. Georgia with a huge win over the Texas Longhorns, 35-10 for the Bulldogs, and it was never really close. Gunnar Stockton, 229 yards and 4 touchdowns, leading the Bulldogs to another win, a 9-1 record, 7-1 in the SEC, handing the Longhorns their third loss of the year and their second in SEC play. Effectively, I would say, ending Texas's hopes. Finally, because as of last week, they were still projected to be in the field. No longer the case. We go down to Noah here. We've got to do it. Your thoughts on Georgia? You said you wanted to hit on a couple things that happened during the game, and I would love to hear those things.
Well, first of all, before I get in that, can I just say, initially, this game was left off the script, but when I saw that, just like one of Andy's locks of the week, that idea went up in flames pretty much immediately. So now we got to talk about it, of course. But, man, where do I even start with this? So a few things. Number one, really impressed with the defense. The defense in this game was really good. Texas offense did absolutely nothing in this game whatsoever. And I know that their offense has had issues all season. They can't run the football. They've struggled in pass protection at times. Arch has been inconsistent, but I think the past month, Arch has actually been really good. And I will say this as well. I've seen Arch getting a ton of shit. I don't think Arch is the reason they lost this game. This team did nothing to help them at all. They couldn't block. I swear the wide receivers had like 8 drops, guys. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And they couldn't run the football either, 1.4 yards per carry. So I don't really blame him. But, man, so many things I want to get into this game. First of all, like I said, I thought the defense was really good. I was actually really impressed with the running game. I mentioned this last week, guys. Texas had like the second highest ranked rush defense in the entire country coming in this game. And I was saying, I think if Georgia has a chance to win this game, right, it's going to be from Gunnar Stockton through the air and with his legs, not necessarily with a traditional running game. But, Nate Frazier averaged 4.5 yards per carry. So I thought they did a really good job there. I thought Gunnar had a great game, by the way. 5 total touchdowns. He did have an interception, which was how Texas scored their only touchdown. Actually gave him a short field. But other than that, man, 24-29, he was accurate. Some of the throws, some of the spirals, some of the power he puts on some of these throws, man, I was very impressed with him. I thought he had almost a perfect game. Definitely like a 9 out of 10 game from him, in my opinion. But 2 major things I got to mention, particularly in this fourth quarter. Number one, the fourth downs that they went for, I believe it was late in the third quarter, if I remember right, completely turned the momentum of the game, right? Because it was 14-10, I believe, at that time. And, it looked like Georgia might punt. They go for it in their own territory. They get it. And then later, I believe they have another fourth down, and they're able to draw them offsides, continue a drive. This offense was also methodical in the fourth quarter, guys, killing clock. So what happened was Georgia scored a touchdown. They got I can't remember. I think it was the interception or something like that. Then they score another touchdown, but in the process of doing that, they took off like 6.5, 7 minutes off the clock, guys. So basically, a game that was 14-10 or whatever at the end of the third quarter, right? All of a sudden, it was 28-10 with like 5 minutes left, and the game's basically over, right? That was methodical. But the thing I have to highlight the most, and I think you guys know what I'm going to talk about, that onside kick decision by Kirby Smart. Wow. I mean, what can you say? The absolute cojones to make a call like that, turn the tide of the game. And like I said, that was another big reason that they're able to put that game away so quickly. They score a touchdown, they get the onside, they go down, they score again. I mean, the momentum shifter. After you have a 14-10 game like that, Texas just scored to get back in the game. That sequence of touchdown, onside kick, touchdown, sealed the game. I mean, that was the difference, right? And Kirby Smart deserves a ton of credit for that. There's someone else in that coaching staff who I think deserves a ton of credit for turning it around as well. I'm not going to mention his name, though, because I'm very superstitious, and I know if I praise him, he'll start choking in another big game again. But credit to the coaching staff for Georgia, man, and credit to the players. They played a great game. This was a massive win. I thought it'd be closer than this. I mean, I think I picked Georgia by 10, and that was the most optimistic prediction on this show, right? They go out and win by 25. Now, I know it was a close game for 3 quarters. I don't care. All that matters is the final score at the end, and it shows 35-10. Massive win. Texas's season is now over, and Georgia, they're in a prime position, man. I believe this was their last conference game. They have a cupcake this week, and they close against Georgia Tech, which is not a gimme game by any means. But I think, with this win, unless they somehow lose to a cupcake this week, which obviously I don't think is happening, they pretty much clinch their spot in the playoffs. Whether or not they'll make the SEC championship game, that's something else that, needs to play out, see how that goes. But, yeah, I was so impressed, man. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be this lopsided, but it was nice to see.
Absolutely. Had to be a very good feeling for the Dogs fans, including our Noah Dibler. Tom, we'll get your thoughts on this one quickly. Arch falls once again. I shouldn't say Arch falls once again. I should say the Longhorns and Arch fall once again, not living up to their preseason hype. Georgia putting themselves in a very, very good position to get that first round bye. What were your thoughts on this game and Georgia pulling away in the fourth?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be very blunt here. Arch Manning should transfer out of Texas. Stark is holding him back the same way he did with Quinn Ewers. He ruined his draft stock. I don't think Ewers is anywhere as close to as good as Arch was, but Ewers got drafted in the 7th round. Why is that? Texas is incapable of playing complementary football against the elite SEC opponents like the Georgias and the Alabamas and now the A&Ms. You look at this game, you run the ball for 23 yards and say this is not on the head coach. This is 10 times more on Sark than it would ever be on Arch Manning. I thought Arch Manning had a valiant effort. I really thought he did, but Georgia was getting some good pressure and they stopped the run. Kirby Smart is the best coach in all of college football right now. Whether we like to admit it or not, he is, and he deserves to hold that title right now. Gunnar Stockton looks elite. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, he's not an elite quarterback because he doesn't have all the physical tools. Wrong. This boy could play, okay? Size and optics are just, they're just in front of you. It doesn't mean the guy's not going to play well. This guy accounted for all 5 touchdowns that they scored, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground. I'm just saying Arch Manning needs to transfer out of Texas before it is too little, too late.
Clip ready.
That'll be, we'll clip that one. We'll clip that one up. But, in this world of college football, it's not a crazy thing to say or predict at this time. So let's go. We got a couple more games I want to hit on, and then we'll go to our segments. USC and Iowa. It's a game that we split here last week when we were picking. Tom and I picked the Hawkeyes. Noah picked the Trojans. They get the win 26-21. Iowa covers the spread. Thanks for that one, Tommy. 7-3 in the pool this week. How we doing? Of course, one of those 3 losses was my lock of the week, but we don't need to talk about that. USC 26, Iowa 21. It was sloppy. It was wet. Unfortunately, the game didn't feature Cougars, Noah, but sloppy and wet, close enough. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. This was some smash mouth football, and USC shows their defense was capable of holding the Hawkeyes and getting a gritty win.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I 100% knew Iowa was going to cover this spread, and I believe it might have even been at plus money. I'm not 100% sure. If it wasn't, it was just tipping the other way. But anyway, I knew USC was winning this game all along. This was a reverse jinx by me last week, so that now Notre Dame's 10-point win over USC looks a lot better than it did before. USC continues to climb up the rankings, and I love it. I personally love it. Mayava and Lemon were just too good. Iowa got shut out in the second half, and quite frankly, they could not finish drives. You wonder how much longer this 1950s approach by Kirk Ferentz will last, because this is a very good team, not great team. Gronowski, they're unable to tap into his full potential because the offense has not evolved with time. And over time, I think Kirk Ferentz's methods are going to become outdated at some point within the next 5 years. So it is very concerning moving forward. But shout out to USC and Lincoln Riley for getting the job done against a quality Big Ten opponent.
Absolutely a big win for them. And my team beat the Trojans this year as well. So I wouldn't mind them to keep winning, keep that win for the Illini looking good. Noah, you picked USC to win this game. Tom, little did we know Tom was going to 200 IQ Galaxy Brain play of the reverse jinx. I should have seen that coming from a mile away. He talked me into picking Iowa on the show. He hit me with it. Your thoughts on this win for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans?
First of all, I have to give Tom credit. I do the same thing. Basically, every time I get a pick wrong, I say it was just a reverse jinx, man, and no one can one can say you're wrong. But yeah, guys, this game about went how I expected. I mean, what a boring Iowa team this is. I gotta say this. Does anyone in college football history have a longer leash than Kirk Ferentz, man? Now, I'm not saying he's a terrible coach, but I mean, this guy has been here longer than I've been alive, man. He's been here since, what is it, like 1999. And it's the same thing every year. They run the football, they have good defense. They're pretty damn good at producing tight ends as well, but boring offense, man. It's just so predictable. I mean, even when they are able to run the ball, which they were able to do in this game, they average 5.5 yards per carry. They just have no passing game. Like, this is just, it's like, honestly, it's quite possibly one of the worst college passing attacks I have ever seen that isn't from one of the service academies, because they run the option. That's kind of, a part of the thing with them. But, they just can't get any offense going, man. And their defense in this game, I think did their job. Like, Maava has been, I believe he might be leading the entire country in passing yards. If not, he's very close. But to hold him at 254 passing yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, you would take that as a defense all day long, right? That 3.4 yards per carry on the ground as well. But what you will not take was what Mekhi Lemon did in this game, guys. 153 yards, 10 catches, and a touchdown. What a performance by him, excuse me. But, I think Iowa defense did a respectable job. I think if you hold a team like USC to 26, you take that every day of the week. But then the second half, adjustments are made. Iowa offense can't do anything. They get shut out in the second half. And ultimately, Iowa defense cannot hold these guys forever, man. They're able to score 16 in the second half and win the game. Gronowski also had an interception, which definitely didn't help matters by any means. But yeah, I mean, it's just same old Iowa, same boring Iowa offense. Credit to USC, they got it done. It kind of went about how I expected. I did expect the Iowa defense to keep USC in check, but when Iowa needed those offensive drives, man, to go out and win the game, they couldn't get it done, and they fall to 6-4. But like I said, Kirk Ferentz has the longest leash in college football, so it doesn't matter if they go 6-6. 5 straight years, he'll probably still be there in the office by 2030. We'll still look how it does today. That's just the way it is with them.
1999. You weren't born yet? You were born in what? 2000?
I was born in '99. It was just
Terrence,
99.
Terrence
Okay.
was 98, guys. He took over 98. So
Okay.
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 by a year. Yeah.
Either way, my point stands. All right, so let's go. Our last game in the American. Tom said the other week we're gonna have to talk about the American just about every week now. And USF falls once again. They're now 4-2 in conference play, 7-3 overall. The midshipmen get a win at home, 41-38. They bounce back, and they are now 6-1 in American play, 8-2 overall. Blake Horvath, 147 yards on 8 for 15 passing. That's not bad for only throwing 15 passes and a touchdown. Byron Brown, 327 through the air and 2 scores. He did have an interception, added 2 more scores with his legs and 136 yards on the ground. Man, he is just their entire offense. But it was just not enough. Navy gets the win. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. A big one for the American and probably the end of USF's run to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting the way things work out. Both teams surpassed 500 yards of total offense, so this was a shootout. The midshipmen ran for 338 yards and 4 scores, and they forced 2 USF turnovers. That's why they won. Also, when picking this game, I was not aware if Blake Horvath would be back or not. Turns out he did come back in this game. Alec Tekja did a great job. Braxton Woodson had 2 scores as well. And then USF, for some reason, they could just not cover Heidenreich. I mean, this guy causes a lot of problems. He even caused Notre Dame a little bit of trouble on the back line over the past 2 seasons. He's a very underrated player. And for USF, unfortunately, Byron Brown had to do everything. Like there was no supporting cast for him on Saturday. And I thought he did a valiant effort type of job. He accounted for 4 total touchdowns, 1 interception. But, all in all, USF is done. I think it speaks volumes to Navy, too. They're a really good football team. A lot of people downplay wins against Navy. You have to stop doing that. You can't view, the military academies as a joke anymore. Like, some of these programs are actually really, really good. Army almost made the CFP last year. Navy was undefeated for a significant part of last season and this season. It is time to start taking the military academies very seriously, and this game proves it.
Absolutely. A big win for Navy, and they're showing that they can play with the best teams in the American, year in and year out. Blake Horvath is a hell of a guy to lead him to that. And Eli Heidenreich has had a great year as well. Noah, we'll get your thoughts on this one. Tom said it, 500 yards of offense plus for both teams. Little to no defense played. Do you think Navy could somehow play their way into the college football playoff?
Yes, I do, but it won't be easy, guys, because they have 2 tough games to end the season. They have at Memphis next week, and then because Memphis this season is still 8-3, they're still one of the best teams in the American, even though they've kind of fallen off a little bit, right? So that would not be an easy game. And then obviously last game of the season, they have the Army Navy game, big rivalry game. Army isn't as good this year as they were last year or anything like that, but it's still a big game for them. It's possible. I don't know if I would bet on it, but I definitely would say it's possible. And this game, guys, I was really impressed. So, a couple of things, right? Obviously Navy's a team that you focus on running the football with, and that was obviously the main reason they won this game with Texia and Woodson, as Tom said. But I do have to give a lot of credit to 2 guys as well. Number one, Horvath and Heidenreich. Heidenreich in this game was insane, guys. That one-handed touchdown catch and run that he had That was an amazing play. And also, I had to give him a shout out as well. I just read this actually a few minutes ago, but he is actually now Navy's all-time career receiving yards leader. Now it's only 1,700 yards because obviously this isn't a program that runs the football very much. But you know what? A school record is still a school record, so got to give him credit for that. He had a phenomenal game in this one, and for USF, unfortunately, I think this team has basically fallen apart because remember early in the season, right? One of the main reasons we were actually praising this USF team a lot the first few weeks of the season was their defense. Their defense was really good to start the year, but in the last two, actually all three of their losses, but two of them are very recent, their defense has totally collapsed. They collapsed in the second half against Memphis. They collapsed in this game as well. They could not get a stop whatsoever. And, credit to the Navy offense, but USF defense just did absolutely nothing at all. Granted, you can say the Navy defense didn't do anything at all either, but the USF offense was clearly one-dimensional as well. I mean, it was all Byron Brown. He had over 450 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns, but, credit to Navy, guys. They did not make any major mistakes other than one fumble lost, but they won the turnover battle as well. Exciting game for sure. Navy still in the CFP hunt. USF been a great story this season, but any little hopes they had are unfortunately now gone.
Gonzo, my friends. So a lot of fun games last week. Hopefully gearing up for some more of that this week for week 13. Let's hop into some segments. And we're going to start with, I think, the biggest story of the week, or the biggest story bouncing around on social media. So reports swirling that, Lane is talking to both Florida and LSU about their head coach openings. Obviously, this is all doing this in the middle of Ole Miss's run to the playoffs. So there was a report that his family members, which apparently has been confirmed by sources confirmed to ESPN on Tuesday, that Kiffin's ex-wife Layla, son Knox, and his brother Chris Kiffin's son visited Gainesville, Florida on Sunday. Layla Kiffin, who lives in Oxford, visited Baton Rouge, Louisiana the next day with other family members, according to sources. So then, this comes out, and then we've got this picture I wanted to share. So this is from a LSU fan message board. Apparently, we've got an LSU fan camping out in the bushes, and that is supposedly Lane Kiffin getting off a private jet. So, in a disguise, by the way. Lane Kiffin getting off this jet in a disguise so nobody knows. But that is why we love college football. I love the message board lore and the absolute wild takes going on. So all of this is happening, right? And then we see a report that says Ole Miss has given Lane Kiffin an ultimatum. They need to know by the Egg Bowl if he is taking another job or not. Lane comes out. He goes on the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday and says, it's absolutely not true. There's been no ultimatum, anything like that at all. And so I don't know where that came from. Like a lot of stuff comes out there. Like I said, man, we're having a blast. I love it here. Sources told ESPN on Tuesday that Ole Miss officials are pressing Kiffin and his agent Jimmy Sexton for a resolution. Athletic director Keith Carter has asked for Kiffin to reach a decision by this upcoming weekend. So maybe not the Egg Bowl. So before the Egg Bowl. Sources stopped short of calling it an ultimatum, but they added that Carter and others want an answer so they can prepare for the postseason and a potential coaching transition before the CFP and a search to identify Kiffin's replacement if he leaves. Kiffin has an annual salary of $9 million and an additional $2.6 million in potential bonuses. Is the 10th highest paid coach in the FBS this season and the 5th highest paid in the SEC. Obviously, the Tigers fired Brian Kelly. The Gators fired Napier. So now he's got a decision to make. He is coming up, obviously with Ole Miss. He has built that program up. He has made his way around college football. Tennessee, USC. He was in the NFL. Florida Atlantic. He was with Nick Saban at Alabama. Now he's running the show at Ole Miss, and he is going to be one of the most coveted candidates in this coaching cycle. So what I want to ask from you guys, so he's denying the ultimatum. Are you buying or selling this whole thing, this whole situation? And should he leave for either of these jobs? Why or why not? Noah, I'll start with you on this one. Are you buying or selling this whole thing?
I buy the idea that they want an answer for one very clear reason. And I'm glad, the media has caught on to this. They're not asking this for no reason, guys. They're asking this because back in 2022, Lane Kiffin had a whole fiasco about the Auburn job, right? That totally, basically, let's be honest, it totally screwed over Ole Miss horribly that season. They had an 8-1 start. The attention around that fiasco totally derailed their team's momentum. They lost like 4 straight games or something. They finished the season 8-5. And for a team that, had a chance to make the CFP, it was a terrible collapse. So I think the idea that they want, they're not saying, obviously, like, the perfect scenario for Ole Miss is that they keep Kiffin. I think that's what everyone wants. I think that's what everyone in the administration, what the fans would want, right? But at the very minimum, what they want is to have some clarity so that they can make plans for the college football playoff if he doesn't want to coach in the playoff. I will say this, however. The idea of this ultimatum that if he doesn't give them a clear chance that they're going to coach with someone else, I think that's total BS. You cannot make the college football playoff, which is the biggest thing in this program's history, pretty much, and then say, "Oh, we're not gonna coach with you because you didn't give us an answer in this deadline that we gave you." That's total nonsense. And by the way, I've seen the 2 names that they have talked about being potential guys to coach in the college football playoff. And if either of those guys are coaching for you in the college football playoff, you better be ready for a quick exit. Pete Golding, he's a longtime defensive coordinator, but I gotta say, man, every Alabama fan I remember when Pete Golding was on that staff really does not like Pete Golding. And the other option, and Tom will love this one, Joe Judge. Joe Judge. That would just be something, right? Imagine, tight college football playoff game, biggest game of Ole Miss's history, and then you see on a 3rd and 9 that they run a quarterback sneak with Trinidad Chambliss. That would be something special. But so that's the part I don't buy. As for the second part, do I think he should take those jobs? Absolutely not. You can just replay the clip of what I said about this from like 3 weeks ago when he asked me the exact same question. Those jobs are downgrades. I will say this. If he had to take one, I would take the LSU job. I think it's much more attractive. Florida's a total joke, guys. Like, I'm sorry. No coach should take that job whatsoever. The ADs, they're total idiots. And I'm not saying LSU's are amazing, but they fired Dan Mullen because they didn't like him. Basically, you have to be a yes man. Billy Napier was a yes man, which worked for them until they just totally fell off the cliff to where they were like, even we can't accept this anymore. Lane Kiffin is the exact opposite of a yes man, guys. If he goes to Florida, I would not be surprised almost immediately if there's tension between him and those higher ups there. I don't think that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. If he had to take one of the jobs, he should take the LSU job. But I think he should stay as Ole Miss pretty clearly because Ole Miss has already clearly said, guys, they're willing to match money-wise any offer those 2 teams give them. So it's not, you can't even say, oh, well, maybe he wants to go to one of those teams to make more money. That's a total non-consideration. The only reason he would consider going to those programs is if he believes he has a better chance of winning a championship with one of those two teams than he does with Ole Miss. That's the question on everyone's mind. But by the way, can I one final thing before we throw it to Tom? I hate this semantic bullshit that people do to where it's like, oh, Lane Kiffin, he's like, oh, it's not an ultimatum. But then one paragraph later in the same article, guys, it basically says, while it is true that it wasn't specifically called an ultimatum, it is true that the team wanted some type of answer before the Egg Bowl. So it's like, okay, so it's basically an ultimatum. Like, just because it wasn't, that's like saying, guys, that's like someone in a relationship telling their wife, "Hey, I think our marriage is over," and then a week later, when their wife comes to him with the papers, is like, "I didn't say I wanted a divorce. What are you talking about?" Like, it just makes no sense. It's so stupid. They clearly want an answer, and the reasons why are obvious. It's Lane's own fault, by the way, but.
Yeah.
The worst thing that could happen for this ride is I think we're already kind of starting to see this. The drama is picking up, and it's picking up right before the college football playoff, which they're basically guaranteed to make unless they totally choke the Egg Bowl. He's doing it again. I don't know if you even realize this. He's doing it again, but he's distracting from his team's success once again. And one final thing. I know I said the last thing was the final thing, but one final thing I just thought of. I'm sorry, guys. I think Lane is overrated as a head coach. I don't think he's terrible, but he's another one of those guys that we've seen in big games. He can really come up short. We have also seen him, by the way, in a major job before. Now, granted, it was a while ago, but he was at the USC job. And guess what? Did he win a national championship there? No, he failed and got fired and had to try and rebuild his career at Ford Atlantic for a few years before he finally got another job offer. So, if this is a thing where some program like LSU or Florida is saying, "Hey, let's pay Lane Kiffin $15 million for the next 10 years and hope that he's going to win us a national championship," I don't know, man. SEC is still pretty strong. You still got Georgia with Kirby, you got Alabama, you got Texas, and I know Texas had a down season, but they'll still be in consideration most years. You have Oklahoma coming up. I don't think Ole Miss would all of a sudden become irrelevant just because Lane Kiffin left either. In my opinion, the best ending for all parties is that he stays with Ole Miss. Will he? I don't know. I think it'll be either LSU or Ole Miss, but what a shit show, man. And it's all the fault of mostly Lane Kiffin, but I don't think Ole Miss has helped the situation either.
Right. I mean, it is worth asking. Yeah. So why is your family taking a private jet to Gainesville and Baton Rouge on back-to-back days?
Yeah.
When you're in Point Area, it's a very valid question. And the immediate interview on the Pat McAfee show. No, I love it here. We're having a great time. Yeah.
Heard that before.
Yeah, sure you are. But and also you brought up the Auburn thing. That kind of helped, get Ole Miss some more NIL money and some more backing. And you said, they'll match the offer. This is very interesting. He's built at Ole Miss, a pretty good program. Like you said, they're going to have to really mess something up to miss the playoff now. Do you really want to go start all over again at one of these other programs? Tom, let's get your thoughts on this buying or selling, the whole ultimatum thing. And would you leave if you were Lane Kiffin?
Selling the ultimatum thing, I would not leave, and here's why. You're making $9 million a year. You're 54-19 as the head coach. He has the program in a great place, and LSU is currently in shambles. Florida is 5 years away from being relevant. And by relevant, I mean like 8 wins. There is no way he takes either of these jobs. He is staying at Ole Miss. I know that might be a bit of a hot take right now based off of what we've been hearing and these rumors circulating, and that they're saying they're ready to turn to Joe Judge or Golding if things go south with him. But I don't, like Noah, you said before, I don't think Lane realizes this. This could be setting Ole Miss up to be a first-round exit in the CFP if this keeps up. I mean, this is getting dangerous here, guys. You got some good teams at the back end, right? If you get a 6-11 and, God forbid, Alabama is the 11th seed or somebody like that, like they're screwed. No, I mean the optics of this are really, really bad. I mean, look, private jet. It's not like he's there all day. He's going to listen to offers, and he's going to go back to Ole Miss and say, look, I'm being offered this. It's kind of disrespectful if I just immediately turn them away. I mean, use it as leverage. Get more money out of Ole Miss. Say, hey, you want to keep me long term? Fine. Extend me. Give me a raise. I have this program in a good spot. The development of Jackson Dart. Look what he's doing in the NFL. He's phenomenal. He might win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Trinidad Chambliss, the fact that he's this good this soon is a testament to that coaching staff and Lane Kiffin. And he's so young, isn't he? Is he a freshman or a sophomore? He's young, Chambliss. He might be a true freshman or a redshirt freshman, whatever he is. But yeah, he's in a good spot at Ole Miss. Don't leave. Don't leave.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm looking up Trinidad Chambliss. Oh, he's 23. He's a senior.
Did not know that.
He's a transfer from Ferris State.
Junior college?
D2. No, D2. He won a D2 national championship, and I believe he was the D2 player of the year.
There you go.
Last year. And he got his opportunity. He's taking advantage of it. But yeah, this was a take my buddy Lucas had. He said Lane is playing chess, listening to the offers and keeping LSU and Florida on the hook so they can't recruit the portal, which that's smart too. Like keep them holding on to hope as long as possible so he can keep kind of doing his thing at Ole Miss. But I don't know, very interesting situation here, but that was capturing social media and college football news this week. Let's move on to, I think, the next biggest thing. It's pretty much the biggest thing every week, right? Until the games. It's the CFP Top 25. The committee has released the Top 25 rankings for this week. And we're back, boys. The Illini have made it back in. We officially have 3 ranked teams again on the college, on our college football show, on the Tailgate Committee. Congratulations, boys. We did it. So Arizona State is now in at 25, Tulane at 24, Houston 23, Missouri 22. The Fighting Illini are at 21, Tennessee back at 20, Virginia, Michigan, Texas, Georgia Tech, USC, Vanderbilt, Miami, Utah, BYU at 11. Now for the top 10, Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas Tech at 5. Georgia slides into the top 4. Texas A&M at 3. Indiana at 2. Ohio State at 1. So the top 3 stays the same. Tom, I want to start with you on this one. Give me your thoughts on this. I want to talk Notre Dame a little bit because there's been a lot of talk about that 8, 9, 10, right? Where with the way they seeded or they have ranked, I guess, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Oklahoma. So give me your thoughts on the top 25 as a whole, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and kind of your take on the whole, people kind of trying to knock Notre Dame, it feels like.
Yeah, I think Georgia is a better football team than both Texas A&M and Indiana, but they're seeded properly as far as the rankings go. But I think if you want to look at the top 2 teams right now in the country, most complete teams, I think Ohio State and then Georgia are top 2, but based off of performance and records, I think the top 4 are seeded. I guess they're seeded correctly because I believe Indiana has played one more game than A&M, but if A&M wins the SEC, they should leapfrog Indiana. Obviously, because either Indiana or Ohio State is going to finish with a loss. Texas Tech seeded properly at number 5. I would flip-flop Oregon and Ole Miss, just my opinion. Oklahoma, you know what? They beat Alabama. You have to give them a little bit of credit. Bama was a top 5 team last week. They deserve to be where they are. And Notre Dame deserves to be where they are. And here's why. I think it's a joke that Miami is on the list, quite frankly, over teams like BYU and Utah, but it is what it is. So I live in New York. There's a lot of Notre Dame fans in New York, and we get a lot of hate. Whether it's, the Catholic tradition or if it's the fact that there's just a lot of us. So I'm going to explain why, taking off my Notre Dame lens for a minute, and explain why Notre Dame deserves to be where they are at number 9, despite their 8-2 record. Their 2 losses were the first 2 weeks of the season by a combined total 4 points. And the A&M game came down to a 4th and goal jump ball play where Notre Dame lost by 1 point. They're coming off blowout wins to Navy and Pittsburgh, both ranked at some point, Pittsburgh still being ranked. I want you guys to keep these 2 numbers in mind before I get into this experiment here. Notre Dame has the 11th best strength of record, like their opponents. 29th highest strength of schedule. So if you guys want to write these down or keep in your mind, 11 and 29 are the numbers. 11th for strength of record, 29th for strength of schedule. Alabama's right behind them at number 10. All right, let's take a look. Lost by 14 points to an ACC opponent that is unranked and having an awful season. That is the reason why they are ranked behind Notre Dame. And a loss in week 12, would you rather have a loss in week 1 and 2 or a loss in week 12? The committee has stated it is better to lose early than to lose late. Alabama, however, has a better strength of record than Notre Dame at number 8 and 4th in strength of schedule. You cannot use that reason in Notre Dame's favor, but you could use the prior 2, the loss by 14 to ACC opponent below 500 and a loss in week 12. Let's go on to BYU. Why should BYU be ranked behind Notre Dame? Here's why. A loss in week 11 by 22 points. 22. I know it was to Texas Tech, but it was a 22-point loss, guys. These conference games should not be blowouts. Notre Dame has lost by a combined 4 points in their 2 losses. Combined 4 points. BYU lost the game by 22 in week 11. It's not great. That's the reason why they are seated behind Notre Dame. They have 6th strength of record, which is better than Notre Dame, and they have 27th best strength of schedule, which is 2 spots above Notre Dame. But again, 22-point loss, blame yourselves. Utah, let's get into Utah, and then we'll get to Miami and we'll close it out on my end. Utah has losses to 2 Big 12 opponents, which is considered one of the weaker Power 4 conferences. That is one reason why they're behind Notre Dame. The second reason why they're behind Notre Dame is they have a 24-point loss. You lost the game by 24 points. Was it to Texas Tech? Yes, it was. But again, similar to BYU, you lost the game by 3+ possessions. Notre Dame has not lost the game by more than a field goal this season. Now, Utah has 3 reasons why they're ranked behind Notre Dame. I mentioned the first 2, and here's the third. They have 18th strength of record compared to Notre Dame's 11th and 46th strength of schedule. So I don't need Big 12 fans at work telling me that Notre Dame's strength of schedule is worse than these Big 12 teams. Notre Dame's is 29th and Utah's is 46th. So please get out of here with that. And these are the metrics that the committee is using, by the way. Mm-hmm. So far, just to recap, Bama has 2 reasons. BYU has 1. Utah has 3. And finally, Miami. Now you might be asking yourself, well, we beat Notre Dame. Why are we ranked behind them? Well, it actually makes sense if you look at it. Now the Notre Dame homer will say, well, if we played again now, Notre Dame would beat Miami. While I do agree with that, these are my reasons. Number 1, this really isn't a reason why they're behind Notre Dame, but it just shows you how favorable their season has been. They've played every game in the state of Florida up until week 10. Now, the 2 reasons why they're behind Notre Dame. They lost to not 1, but 2 ACC opponents, including unranked SMU who is a respectable football team. They were in the CFP last year, but you lost to SMU by 6 points in overtime. And then the second reason, 16th strength of record. Again, Notre Dame has a higher strength of record, and 43rd strength of schedule. 43rd in strength of schedule. And I believe both of those losses to Miami were unranked losses at the time. I know Louisville's been in and out of the rankings. But I just gave you guys 2 reasons why Bama is behind Notre Dame based off the metrics the CFP committee is using. 1 for BYU, 3 for Utah, and 2 for Miami, Florida. So please, Paul Feinbaum, go F yourself.
Oh, so I do think it is a really interesting argument, right? Because what if we get to a point at the end of the season where both Miami and Notre Dame are sitting with 2 losses and Miami holds the head-to-head? How much do they put in that head-to-head over, the strength of schedule and all those other numbers? Do I think that Notre Dame is a better team than Miami right now? I do. But I do think at a certain point, like, the head-to-head matchups have to matter. Obviously, Miami's going to need a lot of things to go their way. So Noah, let me get your thoughts on these initial rankings. And if you have any thoughts on the whole Notre Dame situation, I'd love to hear that as well. Rankings as a whole, obviously big for Georgia. They hop into the number 4 spot. So yeah, let me hear what you think.
Okay, so I'll start with the easy stuff. First of all, I think the top 5 is spot on. In my opinion, Ohio State's still the best team in the country. Indiana and A&M are still both undefeated. 1 Big Ten, 1 SEC. Georgia has looked amazing since the Alabama loss. Pretty much, definitely the best 1-loss team in my opinion. I do agree with Tom. I think they probably are more talented than the 2 teams ahead of them, but just going off resume, I think number 4 is fair. And then Texas Tech at number 5. Big 12 is a little bit of a weaker conference, like Tom said, but they're still undefeated. Their defense looks great. Obviously, their offense is incredible, so I understand that one. And then, the contentious part is where we get to 6 and 10. So I don't really have any issue with Ole Miss or Oregon. I think you could swap them, but I don't think it's not like worth raving about or any means. They're 2 very respectable 1-loss teams. Oklahoma, and so this is the funny thing with Notre Dame, right? I was actually thinking Notre Dame might be a little bit too low. I felt like you could actually swap them in Oklahoma because Oklahoma their offense has looked a bit inconsistent this season. They had the injury to Mateer. There's been a lot of ups and downs for them, but I do understand they did beat Alabama, who was ranked number 4 last week. So I think that's a fair reason. And then we get to good old Notre Dame. Now, I hate to be boring. I basically agree with everything Tom said, which is unfortunate because I would love to troll him and say Notre Dame is overrated. But listen, guys, Notre Dame has been one of the hottest teams in the country since those 2 losses. And those 2 losses were very tight games. They lost to Miami, I believe, by 3, and then A&M by 1 on basically a last-minute touchdown on a 4th down play. And those aren't scrub teams, guys. I mean, we just talked A&M's undefeated. They're number 3. Miami's number 13. Alabama just had a loss, so I can understand why they're above Alabama. BYU, it comes back to the Big 12. And the fact that the way that they lost that game to Texas Tech was absolute blowout. Utah, they've been, same kind of thing as Tom kind of mentioned. And then we get to Miami. And oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this Miami team. Notre Dame's stock is going up. Miami's stock the past few weeks, guys, has been going down, down, down. You know who else's stock has been going down? Carson Beck, who has been throwing around turnovers like a grandma baking bacon, man. It has just been absolutely embarrassing lately for this offense. I'll be honest, guys. If Miami did make the CFP, I would expect them to get blown out basically instantly because they have just not looked good lately whatsoever. They're turning the ball over. Their defense is making mistakes. Mario Cristobal. I mean, this is a story of Miami every year, right? They get off to a good start, like they did last year. Then they start losing over, they just choke I have never seen a fan base, right, that talks so much crap for a program that has been choking for about 25 years straight at this point. They haven't done anything of note since 2001. Now, I will say this. I understand the head-to-head argument, but if that's your only argument, I think it's a very poor one. Now, I will say Andy is correct. The committee, rightfully so, does factor that in a lot into the final ranking processes. However, because Notre Dame is one of the hottest teams in the country right now, and Miami looks like they're in decline, I don't think that by itself is enough to justify Miami over Notre Dame. If Notre Dame and Miami played a game tomorrow, Notre Dame would win by 2 scores. I have absolute confidence in that. CJ Carr is a better quarterback than Carson Beck. Marcus Freeman is such a better quarterback than Mario Cristobal that the fact it's even a conversation is an embarrassment. And Notre Dame is a better football team than Miami. So overall, I think the committee pretty much nailed these rankings, guys.
We like what we see from the committee, apparently. And while I agree with you guys, I do think, like, hypothetically, if they played tomorrow, they don't play tomorrow. They played and Miami won. Do I think it's the correct decision? I don't know. But let's look at what the bracket would look like if these rankings are to hold. So we have our 4 byes here. We have Georgia, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Indiana. They would all automatically advance to the quarterfinals. If everything was to hold, this would be a fun one. Alabama and Oregon, Miami and Ole Miss. Now, if you'll see here, the highlighted means Miami and Tulane, they have to win their conference to get in. So these are not, obviously none of these spots are guaranteed. There are a lot of things could change, but Miami and Tulane must win their conference. They will not be in. Ole Miss at 6, Miami would be the 11, even though they are technically ranked 13th. Oklahoma and Notre Dame at 8, an 8-9 matchup, another fun one. Texas Tech and Tulane would be who they would draw from the G5. Initial thoughts on this bracket, I think Oklahoma is in a really, really good spot. Yes, they would have to be at Notre Dame, but you think about this, guys, they just secured the big win over Alabama. They have 2 losses in conference play, so they're not going to go to the SEC championship game, but they don't really need to make the playoff. So they can go 10-2, and they get to rest for a couple weeks, and they are sitting pretty. I guess sitting pretty is not the best word, but you did your job. You made the playoff, especially all the talk about Brent Venables last year and the struggles they had. That is a win, and I think there's a lot to be that can be debated. Would you rather? Obviously, you want to play in the conference championship game and you want to win a conference championship, but at the same time, we saw last year actually I think it was the teams that rested might have lost, but there's that argument, the rest versus rust type of stuff, and the extra strain you're going to put on your body playing another game. So when you guys look at this bracket, Noah, let's start with you. What sticks out to you most? Talk to me about this potential path for Georgia, because you got to like that.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, Andy, because I didn't want to sound like a homer when I led with that, but I think the most advantageous position in this entire projected bracket so far is Georgia. First of all, I think they would have an advantageous first-round matchup. No disrespect to Tulane or Texas Tech, but you would expect Georgia to be pretty decent favorites against either of those matchups. And then it comes down to the semifinal path, which probably would be Ohio State if I had to guess, just based off that. But I'm not saying that, it's a guarantee that Georgia would beat Ohio State by any means. I do think it would probably be Ohio State's toughest matchup, or one of the toughest potential ones. And if Georgia could somehow beat Ohio State, then I actually think that means they could have a potentially more favorable, funny enough, matchup in the national championship game. And that's kind of actually how it happened the last time Georgia won the title, guys. The real national championship game was the semifinal against Ohio State, right? And then the title game was a total blowout, pretty much. So not saying the same thing would happen this year, but I do think there is a good potential for Georgia to make the semifinal, and then, what happens from there happens. Other than that, I think first-round matchups, I think the most interesting one by a comfortable margin, guys, is that Alabama-Oregon game. I think that would be a remarkable matchup. Alabama, after a loss, but they're still a very good, well-coached team. Oregon has been really solid this season as well. In fact, I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I would actually expect both of those guys to win if they played Indiana right now. Might be a hot take, but I think those would be really tough matchups for Indiana that they haven't seen the likes of yet this season, and they still have to play Ohio State as well. But other than that, Ole Miss, Miami, decent matchup, but I think both those teams would probably lose convincingly. Maybe not convincing, but I do expect that they would lose to A&M. Notre Dame, Oklahoma is an interesting one as well. But man, that would suck to have to win a game like that, and your first real massive test in the quarterfinals is Ohio State. Like, wow. But yeah, interesting bracket for sure. Obviously, there's so much to play for, guys. Mainly the SEC. Multiple teams could still win the SEC. If Alabama beats Auburn, they get in because they have the tiebreaker over Georgia. And by the way, can I just say this to close out? This is one problem I'm starting to notice with the 12-team playoff. The fact that multiple Georgia fans, now I haven't said this, but a ton of them have been saying it would be advantageous if we did not make the SEC championship game because we get a bye and we're guaranteed to make the playoffs. There is an inherent flaw with your system, guys. If missing a championship game entirely is preferable to making it and potentially winning it. That is just not right, and I think that is a big flaw of the 12-team playoff. But obviously, the 14 playoff had their own flaws, but that's a story for another time. That's just something I've been seeing going around. But yeah, still a lot of football to be played, but some interesting matchups here for now.
It's kind of like what I brought up earlier with Ole Miss, right? It's weird. It's like in any other year or any other systems, like, yes, we would like to play for the conference championship game. Now you're like, well, do we? Do we like we're like, what if somebody gets hurt or all this stuff? Or what if we lose and we're out? So that's like, it's also tough. Really depends on what happens in the conference championship game, right? Like, should teams really be penalized for losing conference championship games? Or I guess it really depends on how they lose, right? If it's a blowout, if it's a close, the situation is fluid. But Tom, talk to me about what you think about this bracket. Talk to me about Notre Dame's potential path. Noah kind of said it. That's a really tough one. Yeah, hey, congratulations for winning your first round matchup. Here's Ohio State.
And I'd welcome that with open arms. I want payback from last year.
Oh,
I'd actually love to play Ohio State in the quarterfinal. I'd rather die on my sword than shy away. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. I am not shying away from this path at all. Quite frankly, I don't think Ohio State finishes as the number one team. I think they're going to slip at some point. And I am not going to say too much because we have a couple more weeks before this is all said and done. But there is a conference title game to be played. There's a real shot. There is a real chance that Texas A&M could, or honestly, even Georgia with the one loss could wind up as number one. Obviously, Georgia would need a lot to happen, right? They need A&M to lose to Texas to get in the SEC championship game and then win. But there could be some shakeup with the top four. And last year, the bye did not work in any team's advantage. If I am Texas Tech, I am really scared of this right now because Ohio State and Indiana likely have to play in the Big Ten championship game. If one of those teams slips before that, they are guaranteed to have a second loss. Therefore, you, by default, move into the top four. And I spoke to a Texas Tech fan today, and he said, I do not want a first-round bye because of seeing what happened last year. You had Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas all in the Final Four last year. None of those teams had a first-round bye. You had a 2-loss Ohio State team last year win the national championship in the final against a Notre Dame team that lost to NIU. So any team can happen. It's almost like if you get hot at the right time, this is where we are. We know Ole Miss won't be playing Miami. Miami can only get in at an at-large. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I think I sort of agree with, I think, Noah, you said it, that the winner of Alabama-Oregon has a real shot at getting past Indiana. It's tough to beat a team twice in the same season. And even though it happened once already, this game would be at a neutral site, the Indiana-Oregon game, if it is then. Crazy thing is, I don't think it will be. If Alabama plays Oregon, I think they beat them for some weird reason. I know Dan Lanning is an awesome coach, but I am not in love with Dante Moore, guys. I'm just not. There's something about him that doesn't sit right, and it has nothing to do with the decommitment from Notre Dame 3 years ago. It has nothing to do with that. But all in all, this is setting up for possibly a team like Texas A&M to go all the way, maybe even Georgia. Noah said it before. I like Georgia's path. This is too good to be true. Ohio State is not going to finish the season undefeated. It's just not going to happen.
All right, bold take. Ohio State is going to fall according to Mr. Scavetta. I think that, I think Alabama set up really nice. An Alabama-Oregon playoff game in Eugene is fucking awesome. That would be sick. Texas A&M has a really great path, I think, if it all sets up to go to the semis at least. We'll see. So interesting stuff. We still got a few weeks left and see how this will all shake up. But let's go finally to our week 13 preview. Let's talk about some of the matchups from this week, what we think you should be watching. We will start at 11 a.m. in the SEC. This is on ABC. Missouri going to Oklahoma, ranked 8 in the CFP, I believe number 11 in the AP poll. Interesting how the AP poll and the CFP poll differed this week, but we don't have to get into that right now. Tommy, I'll start with you on this one. Tigers or Sooners?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Mateer in Oklahoma coming off an impressive win at Bama last week. They had a pick 6 and 4 sacks defensively. The Sooners, they won't make the SEC title game, but they'll make the CFP if they win out, and they got a good quarterback to run behind in Mateer. They got an awesome running game with Blaylock and Robinson. I like what I see there. And I've spoken very highly of our Mason Thomas. I mean, this Sooners defense has 37 sacks, which is awesome. The problem is where Missouri can catch them, the Sooners have only forced 10 turnovers. Now, what Drinkwitz said in the presser today was a little bit alarming today for their chances to win this game. He said, "We will see how Pribula progresses this week." It does not look like he is going to play. So if he does not play, then you will have to lean heavily on the running game, as they have all season long. They average 242 rushing yards per contest, and it's behind guys like Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts. Hardy has 15 touchdowns and over 1,300 yards. Roberts with 583 and 4 scores. And they have weapons in the passing game, too, to stay close. And defensively, they're no slouch either. Oklahoma's offensive line will have to remain stout and protect Mateer. Damon Wilson II with 7 sacks. Zion Young with 5.5. Those guys are going to come to play. I think this is a very close game in the first half, but I think Oklahoma finds a way to create some separation in the second. Give me the Sooners by 8 to 10 points.
8 to 10 point W for Oklahoma is the prediction from Tommy Boy. Old boy, Noah, how are you feeling about this game? A team that you've spoken highly of in Missouri has a big test for them here.
You do. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, because like you said, I have sung this team's praises a good amount this season. But because of the uncertainty about around Pribula's status, I think it's very hard to pick him in this game, guys. First of all, there's obviously the chance he could miss the game, but I also think even if he did play, it would be very unlikely he would be at 100%. And that is just really not what you want when you're going against a defense as good as Oklahoma, guys. Now, I will say this. Both defenses this season are elite. Yardage-wise, Missouri is 10th, and Oklahoma is 11th, so they're basically pretty even there. But if Pribula isn't playing, they would have to rely on the running game, as Tom said. The problem is Oklahoma has the 4th best rush defense in all of college football. So that is not exactly something that I think would be a guarantee by any means. I think we're going to see 2 really good defenses and 2 struggling offenses, if you will, because Oklahoma, as we mentioned a fair amount, has had some inconsistency this season. Missouri with the backup quarterback. But at the end of the day, guys, this is a home game for Oklahoma at Memorial Stadium. That is a very difficult place to play, especially if they potentially have a backup quarterback. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I cannot pick Missouri to win this game, unfortunately. Oklahoma is going to be riding high with some momentum as well after that big Alabama win. They have CFP aspirations on the line. Give me Oklahoma by 7.
The Sooners by 7 is the pick from Noah. I will also take Oklahoma in this one. Look, if Missouri wants to win this game, it is pound the rock with Ahmad Hardy, right? Control the time of possession and run the ball, which is a tough ask against this Oklahoma defense that has been stout all year. But if anybody's going to do it, it's got to be Hardy. 197 carries for 1,346 yards and 15 scores on the year. I just don't believe Missouri will have enough to get this done. Give me Oklahoma. Ladies and gentlemen, the Conference USA has entered the chat. We have a CUSA game on the preview this week. The 7-3 Missouri State Bears in their first year in the FBS travel to Kennesaw State. The Owls getting mentioned on the show, I believe, in back-to-back weeks. Kennesaw State is also 7-3, 5-1 in the CUSA. Both these teams tied for third place. It's a big game in the Conference USA. Noah, I'll start with you. Kennesaw State or Missouri State?
I mean, Andy, you asked the question, but you already know who I'm going to pick. I mean, let's be, I mentioned it last week. KSU is my sister's alma mater. I've been to their campus about 24 times, guys. What a campus. And I have to give this team a lot of credit as well. Football-wise, last year they won like one game. It was a total disaster for them. First year in the FBS. This season, they have really improved. They're 7-3. Now, funny enough, I'm actually glad they lost last week because that was my lock of the week. Thank you, Jacksonville State. But you know what? I think they can rebound in this one. I think they've still got some good players. Shout out to Gabe Binyard, their leading receiver, by the way. Not to get off too off topic, but I do know some of these players as well because I actually did a dynasty with this team back in CFB 25. So
I love it.
That's there. But I think if Missouri State has any chance, it's going to be because of their passing game. I think that Clark has looked pretty good this season. Totally pretending that I actually watched Missouri State and even know who any of these players are. But, yeah, at home as well, give me the Owls by 10 points.
Kennesaw State by 10. They are favored by 6.5 in this game. You're not Noah. We just talked to Noah. Tom, what do you think about the Bears and the Owls?
Yeah, look, I'd be lying if I said I knew a whole lot about either of these teams, but I did my research a little bit, and they've both been fun teams to follow this year. Kennesaw State coming off a loss to Jacksonville State, like Noah aforementioned, and then the Owls this year. It's interesting. They've had multiple starting quarterbacks, and I don't know if this is a good thing, but they do own just a 1-point loss at Wake Forest back in week 0. I know that was a long time ago, but they almost upset Wake Forest. And then you got a Missouri State Bears team that has ripped off 5 straight wins. They've got a competent quarterback in Jacob Clark who throws a lot of touchdown passes. However, defensively, I'm not too impressed with them. They don't get to the quarterback enough for me. So based off of my limited research and Noah's ties to the school, I will also be picking Kennesaw State.
There we go.
Kennesaw State and the Owls is the pick for Noah. So like I said, it's Missouri State's first year in the FBS. So I'm pretty sure they're not eligible for postseason play unless there aren't enough 6-win teams. Then I think they might be able to get sent to a bowl game. I know they've appealed that. I don't know if that means the same for their conference title hopes. But, they've been surprising everybody. I think Clark has a big game. He's got 19 touchdowns on the year. Lawrence has 5 scores and 700 yards on the ground. Give me the Bears in an upset over the Owls. I will go against my co-host here. I'm sorry, Noah, and I apologize to your sister.
You're on the list, buddy. You're on the list.
I've made it on the list. Let's go to the ACC. Number 20, Louisville is going to SMU for an 11 a.m. game on ESPN2. Missouri State and Kennesaw State is 1 p.m. Central on ESPN Plus. If anybody is wondering, shout out to ESPN Plus. I believe that's the first time that's made it onto the six-pack. But no, I'll start with you on this one. This ACC matchup, Louisville is reeling after that loss to Clemson. It's because I picked them. They missed 2 field goals that would have put them ahead. Still wouldn't have covered the spread, but that's neither here nor there. Do they bounce back against Kevin Jennings and SMU in this one?
Yes, they do. And here's why. No, I do agree. Their last 2 losses have not been good, but just looking at the optics, guys, I still think overall Louisville is a more complete team than SMU for one main reason. The defense. SMU cannot stop anybody defensively. I'm looking at their statistics right now. They give up 400 yards per game. They are 100. They are 135th against the pass. I believe that is next to last. I could be wrong. I think there's 136 teams, but either way, it's friggin' not good. Almost 300 yards per game against. They're much better against the rush, but I mean, this is a Louisville offense that is more predicated towards the pass, I'd say. They're not exactly elite at either, but 54th against the 54th in passing for the Louisville offense, 70th for rushing. But they are a little better scoring wise, 44th, 31.5 points per game. And the Louisville defense is 16th in the country. They're top 25 against the rush, and they're 26 against the pass. So the Louisville defense, I think, is pretty good all around. Look, if SMU had even a mediocre defense, I would say, yeah, I could probably see SMU winning this game, guys. But this defense can't stop a nosebleed. So give me Louisville to bounce back. They're going to win this game by 8 points.
Louisville, a big bounce back win for them. I did not realize SMU was so bad against the pass. Maybe take a peek at Miller Moss over pass yards this week. Tommy, do you agree with Noah, or do you see this game going differently?
This is the problem with that. I think SMU is going to be efficient enough running the football to limit Miller Moss's chances and keep that offense off the field. So SMU 5-1 in the ACC. Rhett Lashley trying to get his team back to the CFP. I'm drinking the Kevin Jennings Kool-Aid. I think he's a good quarterback. I do. I think TJ Harden on the ground is a solid player. Louisville's lost 2 games in a row to Cal and Clemson. The one key for me is, like Noah said, can the Mustangs contain Chris Bell? That's a big, big problem. Going the other way here. I like the SMU Mustangs to beat Louisville.
SMU is the pick from Tommy Boy. And, you're right. They're 5-1 in the ACC. They've got a lot to play for still. It would be hilarious if SMU sneaks into the playoff again in the ACC. I don't think they win this one, though. Give me Louisville. I think Louisville, Chris Bell, and Miller Moss are going to be able to exploit that secondary and get a win in Dallas. Let's go to another ranked matchup here, 2:30 p.m. on CBS. Still feels weird to call this a Big Ten game, fellas. We have number 7 Oregon and number 15 USC. Tom, we'll start with you here. Dante Moore, Jaden Mayava. Who's got the upper hand?
It's going to be a good game. Impressive win for the Trojans last week, as we talked about earlier. Mayava's been great this year. His running game, too. It's complementary football at its finest. You got King Miller and Waymon Jordan running the rock really, really well. And then their pass catchers are outstanding. Makai Lemon, he's been an awesome story to follow. Impressive body of work, over 1,000 yards already with 8 scores. And then if you double him, that leaves Jacoby Lane open in single coverage, and he's capitalized with that a lot. He has just 40 catches, but for 585 yards, 4 touchdown receptions as well. So I'm really looking at that. And oddly enough, both of USC's losses were to Illinois and Notre Dame this season. Both of those losses have come on the road. USC is on the road here. And you have an Oregon Ducks team that averages 234 rushing yards per game. It is going to be very tough to get the Ducks offense off the field. Dante Moore, he's put up impressive numbers. He's been a lot better at home than he has been on the road. He's got Noah Whittington, who, helps them move the football down the field well in the run game. And then Jordan Davison is their red zone back. Kenyon Shadiq, good interview this week with Jenny Dell. He's a guy to look out for in this game. My tight end, 6 touchdowns. I do a disservice if I didn't mention my boy Kenyon there. And then the Ducks. I mean, the Ducks can get to the quarterback. Quite frankly, I think the USC offensive line gets quacked early on in this game. Give me Oregon.
Oh, Tommy, we were waiting for a good Tom Scavetta pun in this show, and we finally got it. He's taking Oregon to win the game. Noah, how do you see this one shaking out in Eugene?
I am picking Oregon as well for one main reason. I have much more faith in this Oregon defense that Tom just highlighted than I do the equivalent for USC. Oregon's defense, guys, is insane. They're third overall. But what's most impressive and what I think is critical in this game is that for a USC offense that is clearly not even close, clearly favors the passing game. They can still run the football, but from all we talked about them this season, right? This offense is all about Maava and Makai Lemon. And what does Oregon have? Just, number one against the pass, 127.3 yards against per game. That elite front, like Tom already said, they're giving up less than 14 points per game. And Oregon's offense is nothing to sneeze at. They're averaging 233 yards per game on the ground, almost 40 points per game as well. Much, much more faith, guys, in that Oregon offense against USC defense than the opposite matchup. I expect the USC offense will still get their fair share, in my opinion, but this Oregon defense will limit them, and I do not believe this USC defense will limit the Oregon offense. Plus, it's at Oregon as well. I'm going to take the Ducks, and let me look real quick at the spread, 9.5. I am picking Oregon to cover because I believe Oregon will win this game by 10 points.
A 10-point win for the Ducks. I think Oregon wins this as well, but I actually think USC is going to keep it a little closer than people think. I got a 6-point win for Oregon in this one. Let's go. We've got 2 games I want to hit on. We'll get our locks of the week, and then we'll get the heck out of here. I guess in the AP poll, they're number 22, Pitt. I put this script together before the CFP poll came out, so I've got the AP rankings in, which it's still the same. Georgia Tech's number 16. Pitt is 22 in the AP poll, but they do not appear in the poll that really matters. So we'll go number 16, Georgia Tech, hosting Pittsburgh. They didn't lose by 100 last week, Tom, but they did get belt to ass. Is it different this time around for Pitt, or do you like Georgia Tech to win this game, 6 p.m. Central on ESPN?
This is what happens when you have a loser mentality. You lose. It's as simple as that. I think Mason Heinschel has been very impressive for them. They have a good pass game, but their defense was atrocious in this game. CJ Carr, he threw a pick, but he was getting what he wanted a lot down the football field. They could not stop the run. And what does Georgia Tech have? They have Haynes King, who has ran for over 800 yards and 14 scores at quarterback. You have Balakai Hosley, who is really good on first and second down. And then you got Jamal Haynes, who has been, he was a starter last year. He's taken a step back as the secondary RB2 this year. But both of those guys, you could argue they're 1 and 1A respectively. Georgia Tech loves to pound the rock. They love to run the football. The one concern for the Yellow Jackets is they only have 2 interceptions and 6 takeaways all season. So offensively, Pittsburgh might be able to move the football a little bit. But, man, that loss at home last week was embarrassing. What makes you think you're going to win against a ranked team on the road after your embarrassing, pitiful, loser type of performance against Notre Dame? I mean, they were never in that game. It was kind of disappointing to watch. I actually thought it was going to be a good game for a little bit. It never was. It never culminated into that. So it left me with a sour taste in my mouth. And why would I pick them here? Give me Georgia Tech, and they're going to cover that 2.5-point spread.
Georgia Tech to win over Pittsburgh. I mean, these were the games that Narduzzi said he's got to have. The Notre Dame game didn't matter. This one does. We'll see how the messaging is different. It was funny. He was on game day and they asked him about that. He said, well, that was Monday. This is Saturday. We want to go out there and win. It's different now. Whatever. You got your ass handed to you. And I think they will again. I like Georgia Tech. Noah, your thoughts on this one?
I mean, he's just a clown. Like, there's nothing else to say about this guy. It's like, not only did they lose 37-15, he called a timeout so that they could get a chance at a consolation touchdown at the end of the game, which they did get to make it 37-15. The game was basically 37-9. It wasn't even close. And by the way, I think his quote, not only for the issues we've already highlighted it last week, and Tom did a little bit there with the loser mentality, I don't even think it's going to matter because they're going to lose. I think I said this last week as well. They're going to lose both of their remaining games. They're going to lose this game and they're going to lose to Miami. Their confidence, I think, after a game like that has to be totally shot. And it's such arrogance as well to think they could have just, said, oh, we can lose to Notre Dame because we can win these last two games when they're literally underdogs in both of them. But yeah, I hate to say this about Georgia Tech because obviously I hate their guts, but they have a really great team this year, guys. They actually have the most yards per game in the entire country because obviously they're elite at running the football. And Haynes King has given them a really solid passing game as well, averaging 36 points per game. The main concern I would have with Georgia Tech in this game would be their defense, especially against, as Tom said, a Pittsburgh team that is pretty good passing the ball, almost 290 yards per game for them. They average 37 points per game as well. So I do not believe Pittsburgh will get blown out, but I believe Georgia Tech will win the game. They're a better team. Pittsburgh will be reeling after a blowout loss. This 2.5-point spread, again, I don't know if the Vegas guy was smoking a joint or something when he made this because Georgia Tech is clearly going to win this game by at least a touchdown, in my opinion.
Love it. Give me the Yellow Jackets as well. We got one more game to hit on. Let's go to the Big 12. BYU is going to Cincinnati. BYU appearing in the poll at number 11. Cincinnati is not in the CFP poll, but a big game in the Big 12. Noah, we'll start with you. Cougars. I mean, it's the Cougars. We have to start with you.
Yeah, you have to, man. The Cougars, they're looking for a big result in this one, guys. And I think they will get it just for one main reason. Cincinnati is a respectable team, but their defense is mid at best. I mean, they're just not good against the rush or the pass. They're a bit more of a bend but don't break. They only give up, I think they give up like 22 points per game or something, which is better than the yardage rankings show. And while BYU did have that blowout loss to Texas Tech a few weeks ago, I still think overall they're a more complete team than Cincinnati. Plus, they have a lot on the line. I think they need to go out there and put in their best performance. I also have more faith in the BYU defense, obviously. And offenses, I think they're both pretty solid. But like I said, Cincinnati's defense is not great at all. Reason I think, first of all, I do think this will be a close game. Spread is 2.5. I think that's about right. It is at Cincinnati as well. But I'm going to slightly lean towards BYU just because I still believe they're a more complete team. I do think it'll be close. I think the spread is pretty much perfect because I'm going to pick BYU to win this one by a field goal. But I think this will be interesting. I think Sorsby is a guy to keep an eye on. If Cincinnati is on upset alert and is able to beat him, it'll be because of him. But I don't think they will.
BYU, the pick from Noah. Tom, what do you think? Is this an upset opportunity for Cincy? Do you think BYU's got this one?
I had a really tough time analyzing this game and coming away with my pick because BYU has underperformed on the road in some games. They barely survived Colorado this year. That was a concern. Iowa State, their defense gave up 27 points. And Storsby is a guy that can put up points. They're pissed off. They've lost 2 games in a row. Tough loss at home to Arizona. I picked them last week. But, Storsby is a good quarterback. He's got Cyrus Allen with 10 touchdowns. And he also can run. Like, that's one element of his game that's not talked about enough. He has 9 touchdowns on the year and over 450 yards. So this is a guy that can move the ball, not with just his arm, but his legs as well. Is BYU's defense up for the challenge? See, this is the thing. I think Kalani Sitake is an awesome head coach. I think there is a coaching advantage here for the Cougars being on the road. Bear Bachmeier, young quarterback on the road. You get a little bit worried there, but Bachmeier can do a lot of the things that Sorsby can. Bachmeier can also run with his legs. He could also deliver an accurate tight spiral into tight coverage. And the one thing here, Noah said it, LJ Martin's going to have a field day, in my opinion. This guy can run the football, and the complementary football will set up, play action pass. They'll throw the ball down the field. They have Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, who are viable options. And the real difference maker to me is the defense for BYU. This is a year where the Big 12 defense, at least the top 2 to 3 teams, they've resurrected a little bit defensively. BYU's defense hasn't been great against the elites that they've played, but they have a lot of talent. Jack Kelly with 7 sacks, Tanner Wall, Falatau, Satuala, and Evan Johnson, each with 3 picks. So they are a defense that is going to give quarterbacks a hard time. With that being said, I was very close to picking Cincinnati, but I just can't do it this time. I like BYU to bounce back. And if the spread is 2.5, right, is it still that? I'm going to go with that.
2.5 to cover for BYU. And the boys think they'll do it. I'm going to be different. I think Brennan Sorsby has the game of his life. And I think since he upsets BYU at Nippert Stadium on Saturday night, I'll be a little different. Give me the Bearcats. So that'll do it for our 6-pack. Let's go to our lock of the week. I lost again, so I will go last. Tom, you go ahead and enlighten us with whatever is going to win for the millionth time in a row.
Yeah, so unlike you, Andy, I've been really good at this segment this year.
Shut the hell up.
It's like every Saturday now when I watch a college football game, I have to remember, who did Andy pick for his lock of the week? Yeah, bet against that. That's the
other side.
That's the way to really get things rolling. This is an interesting week, right? There's a lot of games that I think are really good. Good ones. I am going to go with a game that I can't really bet on, but I think Army beats Tulsa by at least a touchdown. A little bit different for me here. I believe the spread is 10.5. I'm going to play it safe and go Army by at least 7 points at home in West Point against Tulsa.
Army by at least 7 against Tulsa, a game I'm sure America will have their eyes on. Noah, we're all waiting with bated breath for whatever you've brought to the table this week.
Yeah, guys, I've got my eyes on one of the most contentious rivalries in all of college football. I have my eyes on the state of California, specifically the southern half. I'm looking at San Jose State versus San Diego State, man. What a matchup we got here. San Jose State has really struggled this season. I tell you what, guys, unfortunately, I think after this game, it's going to continue because San Diego State has 8-2 this season. They've been really good. They also have the number 4 pass offense, I believe it is, going up against a defense that cannot stop a nosebleed this season. I'll tell you what, San Jose State quarterback Eget, he's going to be thinking, how bad can it get? Because they're going to be getting blown out in this game. Give me the Aztecs.
Aztecs are the pick from Noah, and I'm going to go for mine. I apologize to everybody now. I like Georgia Tech -2.5. Putting the kiss of death on the Yellow Jackets. Everybody was very confident in them. It's one that I had circled before the show, so I'll go Georgia Tech, and we'll just
hammer Pittsburgh.
Wait to see how they lose. We'll just wait to see what happens. But all right, that's our lock of the week. This has been the Tailgate Committee. It's week 13 of the college football season. My name is Andy Hopper. That's Tom Scavetta. That's Noah Dibler. Please, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe on YouTube. YouTube.com/The Tailgate Committee is where you can find us every every Thursday at noon Eastern. Let's go. It's week 13. It's coming down to the wire. And we are going to be here with you all the way to the national championship. Please, wherever you are, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you have a great evening. We'll see you next week.